right, so good afternoon. Today is November 13th, and we are meeting as a team here at Monaco Middle School. This is the TGI team, and we are working with the Genius Hour with the 7th grade ELA co-taught class. I'm Mrs. Davidson-King, or Dawn Davidson-King. This is Stacy Montero. She is our general education, she's our special education teacher, I knew that. And this is Ms. Samira Amr, and she is our general education teacher. And the two of them teach together. Yes, they co-teach. All right, so we have an agenda, and I know that you all already reviewed it. And just for the record, Ms. Pena cannot be here at the meeting today. She is the fourth member of our team. You all did review the agenda, so I'm just going to go briefly over that. The first item is that we're going to review the minutes. I know we've already talked about the minutes from last meeting, and we didn't have any objections to that. So if you could just record that everyone was in agreement with the minutes from last meeting, that would be great. Our team norms, just very quickly, we are going to hold one conversation at a time, and we're going to stay on topic of discussion because we are kind of limited in time, and we're going to reach decisions by consensus. So with that being said, I just want to make sure I state for the record that Ms. Montero is going to be our timekeeper, correct? And Ms. Amr is going to be taking notes for us today. All right. So the two objectives that I really want to review or cover during our meeting is that we're going to review behavior. This is on your agenda at the top. Review behavior and academic data collected and any additional data needed. And then secondly, review and revise the action steps in our TGI plan. So the TGI plan, you saw this when we met the last time, and I emailed you a revision. This is yet another revision. So we'll talk about that when we get to it. So our SMART goal, because I think we're doing pretty well on time. We're actually down at item number 5 on the agenda. And the SMART goal, I'm going to put in the action steps. That's not our complete plan. Let me get the plan out. We have our own binder. We're actually creating a book, you guys. Oh, wonderful. We have our own binder. So here's the plan, and I'm going to read the SMART goal out loud because since we last met, I've revised that a little bit too, based on what we talked about. So by the end of the implementation period, actually that's not the revision. That's not good. That's not it. Here it is, TGI Plan 2. Here it is. I kept the original one. So here's our second one. So by April 1st, 2016, and that could change. Just know that everything in our plan, this plan is a living document. So everything in the plan can change from time to time. Most things can change. We can always talk as a group and make those decisions to make changes, okay? Yeah. So our SMART goal is by April 1st of 2016, students receiving special education services in the targeted 7th grade ELA co-taught class will demonstrate growth toward mastery of writing skills as measured by a 10% increase in Ames Web written expression curriculum-based measurement scores. Okay? And you don't have to write the whole thing out because you are going to have a copy of this, so we'll be fine. And we'll make sure that you get a copy of the revised one as well, Ms. Montero. So I just want to talk a little bit about what changes I made. Initially, when we first talked about doing Genius Hour with your class, we knew that we had a few subgroups in the class, meaning we had general education teachers, special education, and those who are identified as English learners, right? But for the purpose of this project, we needed to have a smaller, more specific group. So I chose special education students. Thought that would be pretty easy. The way that your data is disaggregated, it's already divided by special education and general education. Your class roster is that way, so I just figured that would be an easier way. Plus, we're all interested in that, right? We're teaching a co-taught class, and it's interesting to do that. What I think is nice is that we'll have data for the other ones, but it's not going to be the focus for this project, but we will have the data for the other subgroups. I'm just camera from time to time. Okay, the strategy that we're using, we already talked about Genius Hour. I didn't make any changes there at all, so we can move on from there. What do you guys think about that? When I said a 10% increase, do you think that this is an attainable goal given that we're going to probably be implementing this for about 6 to 7 weeks or so, do you think that's attainable?
I feel that the 10% I've heard from Mrs. Pena might be a little high. So maybe 6 or 7% might be more realistic as far
Okay.
as hitting the goal.
Okay. Particularly since we're not looking at an entire school year, right?
Right.
Or in an IEP, it would be an actual calendar year. So, okay. So, what do you think about that?
Well,
6 or 7?
I'm always optimistic, so I figure if we reach 10% and we only hit 6 or 7, it's still great for us. So.
Okay. So leave it at, then put it at 6%, and if we go higher, then we go higher. But at least, because we want the goal to be reasonable, we want it to be realistic, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I still hope we do 10.
Yeah,
with you for sure. Right, with you for sure. So we'll make that 6%. We'll make that adjustment. Also, we're looking at the Ames web. I know that we're using Evaluate also, so we'll have that data, but I'm thinking Ames Web, the written expression, curriculum-based measurement, are we going to have that particular score in Ames Web?
Well, if we get the test, we will.
Okay.
So Ames Web is something that we'll have to do.
So the benchmarking that you did in September
did not include writing.
Okay. So maybe we need to get that in the action plan, that we do that early to get a benchmark just for writing. Does that make sense?
Right. I think we're a little late for the fall window, but I know as winter break is over, we'll hit the winter window. So we could do one now. We could do one right before we start the introduction.
Okay. So meaning now, like next week? We could probably do it next week?
Yes, because I think it's like 3 minutes. So.
Okay, all right. It's just a timed writing test. It's a writing sample. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to squeeze in here. We can talk about the dates later on when we get to this portion of the meeting. But I'm going to squeeze in here in the action plan for your notes, Ms. Amar, that we're going to benchmark the writing CBM in Ames Web sometime next week. That makes sense. Okay, so that leads me to the action plan itself, which is where we actually have action steps listed. The first one, develop questions for one-legged interviews. I've already done that, so I actually can make that completed. I can check that. And that was for one-legged interviews, and those were the interviews we had discussed that before, where they were very brief. Stop someone in the hallway, ask a quick question. I actually did one-legged interviews with your students the day that I was in the classroom, just kind of sitting amongst them and interviewing them. So I did that with the students. Haven't done one-legged interviews with other teachers, so that's something we might want to do to get some perceptual data from our colleagues on campus, okay? So our next item on the action on the timeline is October 27th through November 12th. Measure engagement. We probably have to look at changing those dates because I was off campus all this week except for today. But measure engagement. We want to do some pre-intervention. So we have some student interviews. I do have observation notes of when I was in. You have data that you're collecting in terms of behavior. So actually some of that step is already completed. And then I have the student work samples as well. So maybe we'll leave those dates the way they are. We just have to do some analysis of the data we have. Okay. You're going to read maybe the next few items.
Let's see. Create template for passion idea data collection. So that's supposed to be happening this week. Okay. And then adapt a graphic organizer for students to use to discover their passions, which I'm sure that they will need. So I think that's a good one. That's also for this week. Develop the one-legged interview questions and adapt Gusky matrix, which you've already started.
Right.
And then write a passion lesson plan and decide on a video for students to watch.
Okay, let's stop there. I know we're probably halfway, midway between all the steps, because I think I have about 20 steps so far. But the more we look at these and we say, oh, we need to add something, we have to consider whatever we're adding, what should come right before that and what should happen right after that. So anytime we add something, we probably will add 3 steps. to really make it complete. So don't take this as some daunting task like, oh my gosh, there's already 20 things on here. We could essentially have 50 steps on here, but they're little steps. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like a task analysis you do for a student. And I'm stopping there because what I want to do is consider what some of the words that we're using, how we would define that for the students. So if our goal is to make sure we're making things exciting for them and we want them to discover their passion, what is it that really gets them excited and would make them motivated to want to write about it in whatever mode we say that written expression is going to take. And I know we talked about a blog and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. How are we going to present that part of the lesson to them? The first part I want to share with you, I've kind of thought about this, and then the rest I want to get from you, and that's why this paper is here. But I want to come into the classroom and say, you know what, you guys have been chosen. You know that I've been coming into the classroom. So, like when I came in today, a few of them waved, and they knew, and it wasn't as much of a disruption, because they know now when I come in, okay, that's Miss King, they know. So what I want to do next is say, when I've gone into other classes, you all were chosen to do something really fun and exciting. And hopefully that'll get the excitement and that can be the icebreaker into this conversation, okay?
Yeah.
Next, it'll be defining engagement, what that should look like, so that we give them the expectation, this is what we expect you to look like, okay? And then defining passion for them, so they can start defining what their personal passion is. So with that said, I want those two of you to just take a second and just write it. Brainstorm, nothing is crazy. Just brainstorm on either side of the page and tell me what you think would be a good way to describe to your students, or define for your students, these two terms, engagement and passion. And while you're doing that, we can multitask, right? While you're doing that, I know that when we did our root cause analysis and we were brainstorming all the reasons why we think that they're having issues with not performing well in the classroom, we all boiled down to behavior, right? So even though you're collecting the frequency behavior, Ms. Montero, I know you're doing that in the classroom, we don't need to talk a whole lot about that with them. It's not about always the scolding and telling them stop, stop, stop. Once we get them engaged and they're paying attention, I'm hoping, I honestly believe that a lot of it will decrease.
I hope so.
Yeah. And I know you all are frazzled because of the behavior. I know you are. I know you are. So, but I'm being really optimistic about it, but I think it's realistic too. Okay. And then passion. And if that's hard, maybe I can share with you some of the things that the students shared with me. I asked them 4 questions. It was, what are you doing in class right now? What are you learning? Why do you think you're doing that? And then the 4th one was, what would make this class fun? So, and a couple of things that resonated with me, because more than one student said it, was, well, why can't we learn some of this with games? Okay, so I Googled a few things. I didn't spend a whole lot of time on it because I haven't talked to you two yet. But there are quite a few games out there for English language arts that we might be able to incorporate in the classroom. So if we're saying we're going to use iPads or the laptops for their writing with the blog, then why not incorporate some games maybe for some of the concepts that you want to teach them, and then we move into the actual writing assignment. It's just something to think about. Think about it over the weekend. We can talk about it some more next week. So what have you come up with?
All right, for engagement, they're just doing something. They're being involved, they're on task. So those are what I have for engagement.
Okay.
They've actually got to be present in the current situation.
Sounds good. And those are terms that they would understand, like they could get that. And if we had to give them an example, we'd say, you were at your favorite movie, you couldn't wait for this movie to come out, and you were at the theater, you would be completely engaged, right? You would be doing all the things that Ms. Montero just said, right? Okay, and then you
And
wrote.
then I wrote discussing things that are on topic. So when they're having a collaborative discussion, like they're supposed to for our unit of Springboard that we're currently in, just make sure that they're talking about things that they're supposed to talk about.
Okay.
So
So we're staying
on
topic.
subject, on
Okay.
topic.
So we may need some things around the room just to remind them. Are you on the topic? Is that on the topic? We may come up with maybe a nonverbal cue. That means you're not on topic. I don't care if it's this, like whatever, whatever it is, right? Just to get them back on task. Okay. And then passion.
Something you enjoy and you want to learn about and share.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. And I would add to that, because you said you enjoy, so I would say something that you want to do no matter how tired you are. Like something that you just never get tired of doing. That you enjoy and that you want to learn about and share. And so I thought it was perfect, and it was perfect timing. It was not scripted. We hadn't even talked about it. But when I was in your class, not today, but last week, and you were teaching how to come up with a good research question, that was perfect for what we're doing. Because what we want them to do is figure out their passion, right? And then the next thing they do is determine a research question about that. And then so that they can learn more about it themselves. But not only that, then they can present it to someone else. So, and we'll talk more about what that could look like. Even if they write a blog, they can still present it to their peers. They can still talk about it, whether it's a small group or the whole group, right? Sure. All right, so that's really good. Let's see, where are we on the agenda? We've already talked about number 6, discuss having data disaggregated by the targeted group. So we've already talked about that. We're good there.
And partially through the action steps, so
right.
Around 8 or 9.
Yeah. So the student interview results. I'm going to read a few. I won't go through everything. I did not get a chance to interview everyone in the class yet, but just a few things that I thought were really interesting. He said, let's see, this was one boy.
Are these anonymous, or do you have their names?
No, I have their names. Okay. There was one in particular I wanted to tell you about. Oh, okay. He said, this was Joe. He said, he's leaving your class. I wish he was leaving your class, but he was good. But you know what? But his idea will still work, because if he feels that way, I'm sure other people in the class feel that way too. But he said that and just so you know, that he was paying attention. When I asked him the questions that I just told you, the 4 questions, he said he was learning about how advertising affects youth. Because he needs to write an essay about it later, and he's learning how to write an essay, and he's learning how to what the right questions are, and words, and how 18 to 24 want.
Probably 18 to 24-year-olds.
Yeah. Want houses, iPads, and laptops, and more technology, he said. I don't know what. Oh, phone. Maybe he said phones. And then he never wrote an essay before. Okay. So he said, I'm learning a lot about how to write and how to find information. So that was good. That was the whole point of your lesson. And then that he has to write 5 paragraphs. And he said that he would like to do it in a PowerPoint or a blog. And I didn't even mention blog. So the only time I said blog is if someone really had a hard time and they couldn't come up with an answer. I was like, well, what about a blog? Or what about this? Or what about, using video, but he came up with PowerPoint or a blog. So I think the students will be interested in it. This person, she said that she's learning about the right research questions, how to do research, so we can be prepared for other classes. I'm learning how important it is that sentences are correct, and she said she wants a blog so other people can read it. So they want people to be able to read it. Yeah. And I'll say this. Someone said, I want to be able to talk more in class.
Oh, collaborative discussions.
Yeah. He said, I want to talk more in class because I want people to know how I feel. And I thought that was really cool. And I want to say that was either Tristan or, let me think. It was Tristan.
Okay. Their names are on top of the paper, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So I won't spend a whole lot of time on that. Then you had those who were extremely quiet, and it was hard to get something at all out of them. So with one, it was just the engagement piece for me with her, that she wasn't answering the questions. Patricia, I think, really quiet. No, not Patricia, somebody else. Not Patricia. Very quiet, and I don't know. I have it written down, but I said, well, let's just talk about what happens when I come into the classroom, because a lot of times I try to say hello to you and you turn your head or you look kind of mean, and I'm just wondering, maybe next time I come in, you could just smile. And she did like this immediately.
Elizabeth?
With both of her hands.
It's gotta be Elizabeth.
And I don't want to say too many things on the video, but she did that with her hands and she smiled. And when I came in today, she did smile, but she kind of turned her head, then she kind of did this, So it's just getting them engaged also in discussion. We didn't talk a whole lot about identifying the students who are English learners, so we might want to do that just as a side note, just so I know who is who.
There's a roster.
You know what I mean? You do have a roster. Okay, good. That would be good. Just so that when I'm in there, I know who I'm interacting with. Yeah. Okay. And I like the fact that you had the seating chart the way you did, so I knew where everybody was. But I know they kind of move around, right?
They do, but they're going to add a new seating chart very soon.
Okay.
So we'll update it.
And speaking of seating, because one of you mentioned changing the seating, not just the seating chart, but changing the structure of the way the seats are arranged in the room. Were you talking about that, or did you say something about them sitting on the floor?
Oh, well, I thought at the time when they're doing the Genius Hour, allow them to move around to sit where they're most comfortable.
Okay, all right. That would be good. And that could help with engagement also. Yeah. They're having a hard time sitting in their chair now.
Oh, yeah. So they could also be sitting on the carpet if they wish.
Mm-hmm. Or even be standing and leaning against one of the bookshelves, as long as they're staying in that general area.
And I think it's important to allow them to work in pairs if they choose, but not for the initial piece. The initial piece, they need to figure out their own passion. Mm-hmm. And then if they have some type of like-minded idea, they can collaborate with someone. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Discuss data collected and any additional data needed. Do you think we need anything in addition to what we're collecting now? We're collecting behavior data.
We already done a couple reading things. We got to do the Ames web writing piece. But I think with all that, I think we'll be okay. I think we'll have everything we need.
Okay. And also the student interviews will give us that perceptual data too. So we've got concrete grades, but then we need the perceptual data too. Because if their perception, even after we get this implemented and we're in the middle of the implementation period, if I ask them some more questions and their perception is that they can't stand it, well then we're not doing what we need to do with engagement. So that's a big piece, is to continue to ask them the right questions. Right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I think we're good there. Let's just look through. I know this like the back of my hand. So if you could look through the rest of the dates and tell me if you think that it flows well.
Creating rubric adapters, the writing rubrics found online, review the action steps for passion lesson, establish blog access for the count for the class. So we paid that fee. We just got to put a class in it.
I don't know if you knew that or not, but we do have the blog account.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Alright, so that's all our prep. So our prep looks like it should be done by the end of this week or maybe the end of next week, based on this timeline. And then it looks like our implementation is going to happen after the end of first quarter. So deliver a passion lesson, incorporate research questions, review the passion lesson, have students explain their passion idea. That's a 3-day period. Collect data regarding students' passion ideas, February 1st. Observe implementation, support implementers. I'm sure those are your responsibilities.
Yes.
Measure engagement.
Was my name not there?
It was.
Oh, okay.
Measure engagement, post-intervention, writing, or measure writing, post-intervention, summative evaluation, things for goals. Although this had just occurred to me, are you going to do post-interviews with the kids to see how they liked it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So during and after.
Okay. That's
that's
measure engagement post-intervention.
Okay, so we have some post-measurement, but not interviews.
It's on there. It's just under tools.
Okay.
That's not under
Okay.
actions. So it's there. I was just reading the one line.
Very good. So again, you will have this. I'm going to put this up on the Google Drive. So if at any time you feel like there's something you need to add, please do so. Just shoot us an email and say, hey, what do you think about this? I added this for February. Whatever. Okay. This is our living document. I just wanted to quickly share this book. This is like my 20% time Genius Hour Bible. It's awesome. I will probably get another copy, and I'll let you guys keep it in your classroom. Okay, so I'll get another copy for you. AJ Giuliani is the one that I sent you the link to his website. So he has a lot of good information there. You might want to start incorporating some of his ideas into some of your lesson plans to prepare for down the road, so that when we implement this, you have lesson plans that coincide. Also, on his website, he talks about using Genius Hour in conjunction with Common Core state standards. So as you're writing your lesson plans according to the standards, you can incorporate some of his ideas of Genius Hour as well. Okay? So that's just preparing for down the road. So when we're implementing, you're still going to be teaching outside of Genius Hour, but if we could do things that complement it, we have a better chance of being successful.
Yeah.
Okay? All right? Any questions? Do we have any parking lot issues that we need to table for later?
No, I'm fine. I can't think of it
Not
right now.
necessarily
Maybe
parking lot,
later.
but for next meeting, anything that you think we need
Something
to
might
talk
pop
about?
up later, but right now I'm okay.
Okay. One thing I want to add for the next meeting to put on the agenda, if you would just note this in your notes, I want to make sure we consider NEPF as we're implementing this. So as we're going through this, I want to make sure we're reviewing the NEPF and trying to figure out some artifacts, because the two of you are going to be evaluated according to NEPF, right?
Correct.
So you're going to have to be able to produce artifacts that say, I met this particular indicator by doing this. So what part of this project can do that for you?
Well,
Maybe start thinking about that.
because there's a student engagement part. There's also the students are measuring their own success part. So those are definitely part of it. If they're collaborating, that's part of it. So
Okay.
I think there's a lot of this. We'll hit a lot of those
All right.
standards that are required.
So maybe for next meeting we'll identify those in particular, okay? So that we have it in writing, okay? I think that's an important piece. That's all I have for today. So what about our next meeting? We need to schedule that one, right? More than likely after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Because the next 2 weeks are going to be pretty busy. I'll be in your room though. I'm here, unlike this week, which was insane for me. But I'll be on campus, you know, those 3 days and then 4 days out of the week. So I'll be in your room. What is a good time to... First of all, we're meeting at 6 period today, and we've always met in the morning. Is this better for you?
It's fine by me. Yeah, 6
Okay.
I prefer prep rather than the morning. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do too. I don't like to make you use your prep, but I feel like we are prepping. So
Right,
but
yeah,
it's
no,
not a waste
this
of your
is-
time, but
No, it's not.
I just wanted to hear from you if that was okay. I just feel like it's more relaxed. The
I'm always
mornings will be
relaxed in
full,
my during 6th period because it's the last,
the last
prep-
period of the day.
Exactly. So prep could have been any time 1st through 6th, but I like 6th period, so I can do this or anything else that I need to do. So,
And we did okay on time? All right. Thank you.